Voyager comes across a planet that seems unsettled, but Neelix says was once a popular trading post. Turns out a brief ice age hit, which wiped out the colony, but now the planet's recovered and habitable. It's then that they detect some stasis pods for 5 people, which are still functioning. The scan triggers an automated message which announces that they plan to rebuild in 15 years. I hope there are more stasis pods around. You try repopulating an entire world with just 5 people, you're going to wind up with a population with 12 fingers. So the message asks Voyager not to interfere, but what they don't realize is that Voyager will always interfere. Unless doing so would prevent genocide, of course. So Janeway has the stasis unit beamed up so they can poke about its innards. It turns out that 2 of those 5 people are actually dead, assuming one of them wasn't Norman Bates' mom. But there's no evidence that the system stopped working, so Harry looks things over. It means that we get Harry doing one of the things that he does best, standing next to a diagram and talking about the diagram. We also get in this episode Harry standing behind his station, Harry being confused, Harry playing his clarinet, and Harry being either captured, hospitalized, lost, or flat out killed. And that means we've got the Harry Kim royal flush. He reveals that the people are engaged in a collective unconsciousness, passing the time in an interactive, dreamlike state controlled by the computer and shaped by the minds of the participants. Things don't make much sense, though. The people know that it's safe. They clearly are under stress, and yet they're not letting themselves out, even though they can. What's more, if Voyager just shuts this thing down, they could suffer brain damage. Tuvok suggests that they go in and ask the other 3 what can be done for them, which is easy enough because of those 2 empty pods. Well, empty now that they took the cadavers out of them. This is still potentially dangerous, though, so naturally Harry will be one of those people. Inside, he and Torres encounter the clown, played by Michael McKean, who has apparently stolen the costume from Tick's superhero Carpet Man. Harry and Torres are soon swept up by the crowd to participate in a freakish dance, something that in most episodes would be the harbinger of an episode full of annoyance. But rather than trying to be cheerful or cute or weird, it quickly is quite macabre, as we see them brought by the crowd to a guillotine. Without any change in the atmosphere, it goes to the grim realization that they face decapitation, and their Trek fu techniques are greeted by laughs by the dancers, who quite literally shrug off every blow, overwhelming them while the crowd taunts them in a carnival-like atmosphere. They chop a log in half to show that no matter how wooden Harry might be, he's still not safe. So Harry is stuck into position, ready to do a far, far better thing than he has ever done before. But 3 people show up and stop it by pointing out that there are likely more people outside, and if anything happened to Harry, they'd probably shut the whole system down. The clown calls things off for the moment, but we quickly see that he knows everything. He's formed from their minds, and so he knows all of their fears and all of their plans. It also means that these circus performers are dependent upon the very people that they torment, formed from their minds, and so without a living mind, they would cease to exist. And it's quite clear that the clown at least is sapient. And he will not take oblivion lying down. He will use the guillotine on hostages if his demands are not met. And the stress of being decapitated causes heart attacks in the actual person, so he has the ability to murder the hostages. And alas, Keanu Reeves is not here to shoot the hostage and take them out of the equation. Harry is kept behind because if something bad needs to happen to somebody, it should happen to Harry. Efforts are made to deal with it, including the Doctor going inside to negotiate without becoming a hostage himself, or being capable of having his mind read. But his distraction is soon seen for what it is, and one of the hostages is executed as a result, forcing the escape attempt to be aborted, and a victory for the clown and his entourage. To celebrate, everyone dances in a manner like a fever dream you might have of Joel Schumacher directing Fantasia. The Voyager crew realizes that the clown is fear incarnate, which is wholly appropriate, I think we'd all agree. This leads to the Doctor going in for the final negotiation, specifically an ultimatum. Trade all of the hostages for Janeway, or she'll shut it all down and risk the brain damage. The clown accepts, and soon he senses her entering the network, and she appears. The hostages are released, and now it's just the clown and Janeway shooting the breeze until the hostages are out. Hi, how are you? I'm Fear Incarnate, the living embodiment of terror stretching back 1 billion years, the most base of all emotions. I thought you'd be taller. So, here's where the plan comes to fruition. Janeway reveals she's a hologram, and that all they've done is allowed the system to scan her real mind, but without any interaction. When that's disconnected, there will be no input, and thus the clown will die. The final scene is a very strong one, as the clown himself comes face to face with the fear of his own demise, McKeon providing his own subtle terror, and Mulgrew her horribly sadistic response to his declaration of his fear with, "I know." Savor it, my friends. Janeway comes face to face with the incarnation of fear, and it is fear that is terrified. The Thaw gets a bad rap from a lot of Voyager fans, so it's ironic that I am the one rising to its defense. And yet, this is a great outing. It has great forward momentum, a good mix of both humor and horror, and McKeon's scenes with both Picardo and with Mulgrew are great double acts. It had echoes of the original series in its garish color scheme, anthropomorphized villains. Even Janeway's consideration of fear and her actions wouldn't need much tweaking to conform to Kirk. She considers the nature of fear, that it's more than just a survival instinct, because people will deliberately put themselves in frightening situations. The clown may be a menace, but there is a depth to that menace. Likewise, the underlying message is that part of the clown wanted her to trick him, wanted her to finally defeat him, because fear exists to be conquered. I absolutely love the way they've handled the clown. Even his actions subtly reflect the nature of fear as a base emotion, and thus thinks in very basic terms. My needs, my survival, my desires. It's not childlike in performance, but in its sentiment. The clown's not portrayed as spoiled, but rather as someone so used to having everything that he can't comprehend not getting his way. Even his line about not getting to read the doctor's thoughts shows this method of thinking to him. A negotiation without him knowing what's in the other person's head is simply ludicrous. The Thaw is the work of Joe Menosky, and it's no surprise. Sometimes his stuff is like this, and sometimes it's like Masks on TNG. But Menosky is the writer that I think is most deserving of being cut slack, because he's the one most willing to take chances. Mark Rosewater, the veteran designer of the game Magic the Gathering, explained that they have individual cards looked at ahead of time and ask people to rate them. And he said it's better to have a card in a set that gets a mix of both 1s and 2s and 9s and 10s, rather than a card that's consistently getting 7s. The lesson, he said, is if everyone likes your game but nobody loves it, it will fail. Likewise, if every episode is just fine, then your show is going to be mediocre. Taking chances on an episode that might be polarizing like The Thaw is actually the best way to ensure that your show has longevity. It's okay if some hate it, so long as some love it. That's why even when Menosky flops, I have to give him props for refusing to go the safe route. Awards time. Worst clown costume. Yeah, he may not be from Earth, but that doesn't mean his costume should be provided by Stainmaster. Best unsubtle innuendo. Telling us that sexually confused Harry Kim is shaping this place, only to show us a bare-chested man in leather chopping a log in half, is the best thing Voyager has offered on that topic since it had women surrounding him beating him with phallic objects. Most TOS color scheme. Beardless James Doohan would have fit right into this episode. And finally, Drat. That's our show. Next time, it's back to Deep Space Nine.